Hello, fellow gîters, and hello to everyone else who hasn't yet opened a gîte. This episode of the Gîte Podcast is with my very good friend Suzie. Suzie moved to France some years ago with her husband Gary when he took early retirement, and I think that's how a lot of people do it. They have some money coming in from pensions and they want to supplement it with running gîtes. But after 7 seasons, they decided to sell their property. So the rose-tinted glasses are off. And we'll hear in this episode all about their experiences and what they're doing now.
Welcome to the Gîte Podcast. Brought to you by Gîte Guru.
Well, there's nothing quite as nice as sitting by a glorious pool in the sunshine in the north of the Dordogne with a close friend of ours, Suzie, who many years ago we met originally on Instagram when Suzie had a gîte. Something really weird then happened because my best friend Bex came to stay with me, who's a friend from university, and she said to me, "Oh, I've been meaning to introduce you for ages to somebody else I know who started a gîte in the Dordogne, but I see that you're already following each other on Instagram." And it turns out that you were Bex's best friend's cousin and you played with each other when you were children. So when did you sell your place?
So we sold in 2022.
So that is 3 years ago. And how long had you run it for?
7 years. So bought in 2015. First year, pre-Brexit. First year was 2016. Yep. It was an established business, so it had been owned by the previous people for 13 years and run as a successful gîte business, which is kind of one of the reasons that we even looked at it in the first place. It looks great on paper. Gary visited it first without me because he couldn't get the time off work.
Gary's your husband?
Yep, Gary's my husband. And he came back and said, yeah, it's not for us. Loads of work to be done. It's really big. Loved it, but, don't think it's for us. And then he came home and he said, actually, I feel really bad that I've kind of rejected it without you seeing it. So why don't we go back again? And then a couple of months later, we booked a visit and I walked up the driveway and totally fell in love with it.
Really?
Yeah, the usual.
Love at first sight.
Love at first sight. It was just so what I would want in a place. An old farm built in the 1877. When we used to talk to neighbours, they would remember walking up the road with pots to collect their milk.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, really, like a really historical place that had a real heart, real kind of pull.
And when you walked up the drive and fell in love, were you looking at it through the glasses of this is where I'm going to come and live? Or were you looking at it from a business perspective? Which hat did you have on when you fell in love?
The hat that we should have had on was the business hat. But the problem is that as soon as I walked up the driveway, none of that really mattered. So all of the things that you should see when you go and visit one of these places it literally just goes out the window. And probably the best piece of advice I could give to people is if somebody offers you some rosé wine at the end of a viewing, don't accept, because by the end of it, you're pretty much saying, where's the line I'm going to sign up?
And the property, it was a massive property, land-wise and building-wise, wasn't it? So there were 3 houses.
The old farmhouse, the Grange, which was the old barn that had been converted into another house, and then our small house, which was behind another barn, and it was 7 hectares of woodland, meadows, garden.
Yeah, it was big, wasn't it? And the people you bought it from, where were they living? In the house you lived in?
Yeah.
So not only were you taking over the established gîte business, but you kept it exactly the same from that point of view. Yeah. And how many people did it accommodate?
20 in total.
Yeah, it was big, wasn't it? How many beds did you change every changeover? How many bedrooms per house?
So 5 in the Gite and 4 in the Grange.
But some of the bedrooms there was one that was a kind of kid's bedroom, wasn't
Yeah,
there?
so the top floor of the farmhouse was we called it a family room. So it was a double bed, and then it had this really cute little kind of annex where there was some little tiny children's beds.
Kind of alcove thing at the end, wasn't it? Yeah.
Really sweet. But it was perfect for people who had small kids. So we kept it pretty much as was. Yeah.
So did you often get people, a group taking both houses, or was it mostly separate groups?
What we were finding and I'm sure you probably talk to most of your clients about having a USP, but most of our clients were looking at renting both properties. So it was like a multi-generational holiday setup.
Yep.
And for us as well, we loved it. So grandparents, parents, kids, it was just so lovely to have so many people all in one place celebrating 70th birthdays, anniversaries, weddings, you name it. I mean, it lended itself for that.
Yeah.
What was great is between the two houses, there was so much space that people can, yes, you're together, but you could be apart at the same time.
Yeah.
There's always a quiet corner to go and kind of find and read a book or whatever. There was a gorgeous courtyard that split two houses, and people would kind of mingle in the courtyard and have kind of apéros before dinner.
And which pool would they use then if there were two pools?
Mostly the farmhouse, because it was bigger, and there was a really high wall that the kids took as the diving board. Not sure about health and safety. But
And sometimes did they kind of make it one of the pools an adults only pool and then the other one for kids?
It's what happened with the Grange, actually. So what we were finding was that the grandparents would go and hide in the smaller of the two pools whilst all of the noise was being made in the other one.
And when you took the place over, did you do much to it, or did you really carry on business as usual?
We didn't need to do much on the face of the houses. It was the rustic kind of French charm that everybody falls in love with. What we did do was it was all of the kinds of things that you never see, but that have to be working if you're going to be running a business, especially for 20 people. So we installed water softeners, we installed pumps to push because the water pressure wasn't great. So what we were finding is, and we did test run both houses with friends to make sure all these things were fixed. But what we were finding was that the water pressure in one of the houses dipped when the farmhouse was being at full capacity.
Yeah.
So we put in, the hot water for one of the houses was a standalone hot water to make sure that it was running on tap. So, real kind of behind the scenes.
But crucial things to the running.
Really, and obviously in this day and age, Wi-Fi. So we had Wi-Fi points in multiple places, especially by the pool. And that makes a massive difference for people's holiday.
So you bought an established Gîte business. You did loads behind the scenes to ensure that your season would go well, that there weren't going to be issues with water pressure or Wi-Fi. And did you have to do anything for the marketing? Or did you also just take over how the vendors were marketing the property?
We did take over the website, so they were fantastic, I have to say. In terms of a handover, it was brilliant.
French or English or English?
And we had a full season. So we moved in November, and then the following June, I think the first booking was in June. It was kind of a full season that we took over. So we kept the website, but actually over the first year, I probably spent a good year doing a lot of research to figure out actually what is it that we want to be selling, what is it that people want to see, and we did change the websites and the social media and all of those kind of things. All of that had a revamp, and even the booking portals.
Was it already on Saw Days?
It was already on Saw Days. Okay. So we stayed on Saw Days, carried on with Saw Days. We did come off a couple, mainly because when they found out that we had bought, they said we were not allowed to carry on the same listing because of the reviews were based on the previous owners. Which actually, in hindsight, I think I was quite pleased about, because it gave me a reason to come off them.
And how long was your season? So you had 7 seasons in total. Towards the end, how long was your season?
I think it was between probably 12 and 15 weeks in the year. We basically opened for Easter, and what we were finding is that we were getting French bookings really early. So for the Easter and May breaks, then the main bulk of the summer season was taken up by the Brits, who were all booking, a year, 2 years in advance.
Yeah, it suited what they wanted from a holiday home.
We did try to extend into sort of September, October, but we found very quickly that actually there wasn't really a market for it. So we ended up just sort of closing the books at the end of September every year.
Is it like actually living on site? So you were quite tucked away.
When the dog arrived, that was probably when actually maybe we didn't feel like it was as private as before, mainly because Penny, the dog, loved children and children love her. And so what we were finding is that kids were just coming over to our house literally every day just to come and say hello to Penny.
Penny is a very gorgeous Labrador.
She's in all sorts. She's in all sorts. We don't actually know.
And just at the right moment, she decides to go for a dip.
And she loves swimming, which is...
Go on, Plum. Do you want to go swimming too? Plum's a bit shy. Doesn't really know about how to jump in a pool.
The good thing about where we were before with the Gites is we had security fencing around both pools, so we never had this. This never happened.
Penny didn't discover swimming in pools until you moved. Because actually you've moved not a million miles away from where you had the Gites.
Yeah, half an hour drive.
Half an hour, yeah. Exactly. So you were in the north of the Dordogne. What had actually made you want to move to France in the first place? Gary wanted to stop work.
He could take early retirement.
Very early retirement.
But we'd been talking for years before that about the possibility of doing something a little bit crazy. We hadn't quite landed on France, and we were looking in other places as well, Dorset, Devon, the usual. But actually what we were finding with the UK is that the setups weren't as good.
So you could get much more for your money over here.
Yeah. All that said, you don't move to France to become rich. The income that we earn every year, it got us by.
So the Gîte income was enough to live off and pay your bills.
We didn't have that disposable income where we're going to fly to Thailand for a nice 2-week holiday. We had we have a nice life.
Did you continue working?
No, not in the early.
I didn't know that. I thought you had continued.
No.
So you gave up your job in the UK, and then at what point did you start working again?
So I was still in touch with one of my old bosses, and she got in touch and said, I'm working for this company and actually they just need some help. And it's something that you could do virtually. She said, you're probably not interested, but I just thought I'd put it out there just in case it was something you wanted to look into. And I had a phone call with them and it was just so laid back.
Yeah.
And like about 5 hours a week.
So you became what's known as a virtual assistant.
Yeah. Within the week, there's a couple of days where you do have some spare time.
Yeah.
So I decided to just give it a go.
So running the Gites, you were really busy over the weekends and preparing for the changeover and doing the changeover and then tidying up after it. But then the middle of the week, you had spare time.
Yeah, I would say Friday to Monday, Tuesday, busy with everything to do with the Gites. Wednesday, Thursday, time to do other stuff. Yeah. And it really was so laid back, and they were so flexible about my hours, and totally understood the whole setup with the Gites. In the summer it's crazy, and in the winter it's really quiet, and I could take on more work in the winter months. So that was 2019.
Yeah.
And then March 2020 hit with COVID.
So did your VAing continue?
It went crazy. The hours kept on coming in and rolling in and rolling in. So it was a really useful buffer because obviously we had to, like everybody else, had to shut our doors, and we didn't really know when we were allowed to reopen.
Exactly. Or whether anyone would be coming.
Yeah. I think Gîtes probably fared a little bit better than hotels and B&Bs because we had the space. So one of the rules was about having the space and the...
not sharing spaces with lots of other people. Yeah.
But it was a waiting game. So I kind of carried on with the virtual stuff whilst waiting for the French government to decide what to do.
We had a regular guest who was booked in that August, and when they arrived, we actually opened a bottle of champagne with them. We were so happy to see somebody who had booked a year before actually be able to come. It was a real kind of moment of, are we, slightly back to normality? And we weren't. Did you get to know your guests quite well then?
I feel like we did.
Yeah.
And I don't know whether it was because of the communication before they arrived. There was a lot of communication before they arrived. Yeah. And so by the time they arrived, especially with the lead booker, you actually felt like you had a really good relationship
Yeah.
with them.
And what kind of contact did you have with them before? You were recommending restaurants and what to do in the area. And...
Yeah, they tended to be these en masse holidays. And, you know, when you've got 20 people to think about, them being organised was...
You have to plan ahead.
It's what I love doing. I love events. I love organising things. I love, you know, anything to do with restaurants, you name it. So that kind of thing is you know, what makes me tick anyway.
So you had loads of contact before they arrived, and then it was almost like greeting old friends.
It was.
When they, even if you hadn't met them before in
it was.
person. The burning question is, why did you sell? So you were doing quite well. You had returning guests. You loved the property. You were really proud of the product that you were marketing and selling. So why did you decide to stop?
That's a really good question.
Why would you give up a sheet? Because you haven't got one now, have you?
No,
it's almost blasphemy.
No, I know. I think after 7 years, we came to the conclusion that actually we'd kind of had enough. We were finding that we didn't have as much free time as we would have liked, because there was always something to do. And that was a consequence of buying something that is so big. Yeah, we kind of were beginning to feel like we couldn't leave the place for any length of time.
In case there was a power cut or something happened. And we're exactly the same. And you've got up to 20 people staying, which is pretty hardcore, and 2 pools to clean. So it goes on.
Harry would do both pools every morning, you know, sort of 6:30 in the morning. Changeover days have their toll.
Your guests would leave at 10 in the morning?
Usually around 10. 9 times out of 10, they'd leave earlier.
And new guests arrive 4 o'clock, so you'd have 6 hours. Maybe a little bit more. You were quite tied to the property. It was a lot of maintenance and work to do, especially on the land. The changeovers were quite hardcore, which I can agree with. When did you start thinking about selling, and was selling the only option?
We did dabble. So because of COVID, we did do a bit of dabbling in terms of reducing the numbers in the Grange, which is a smaller house. And actually, we really liked that. So we rented it to 2s or 4s or 6s.
So you kind of experienced living on the property without it being full of guests. And actually you quite enjoyed having a bit more freedom and it not being overrun with 20 people.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm one of these people. I like to leave a party when I don't want to leave a party. Yeah. So like you said, things were going really well. I was still loving it. I had started thinking about changing the way the business was going to run, in that I wanted to do small weddings because of COVID. There was a company locally who had started doing these really small weddings, and I thought where we were would be perfect. Yeah. But Gary wasn't as enthusiastic as me, and I do think that, you know, because it can be so tough, you do have to both want to do something. And I just thought it was the right time to maybe start thinking about doing something.
And what about moving out of your house? Because your house was the smallest.
We used to go into the farmhouse. Actually, we did do the Grange as well. Occasionally we would. But it just didn't feel right.
In your mind, was it then a space to be rented out?
Yeah.
It wasn't a home for you. I'm talking about the sheets.
Yeah, but I think that was probably stems from the fact that that's how we started out.
Yeah.
I think if we'd have bought it and changed the way we were doing it, so if we'd have bought it and then moved into the Grange or the Châtain, maybe I would have felt different.
I completely agree. So when guests come and they say, "Oh, so much for letting us stay in your home," which it's not our home. It's 2 gîtes that we've designed them for you. They're not designed for us. We don't move into them in the winter, or it is a completely different feeling, isn't it? Yeah. So you got to the point where you'd experienced COVID, things had got a bit quieter for certain periods because of COVID, and you began to think, actually, is it worth all of this hard work? Your work as a virtual assistant was going really well. So you thought, let's knock it on the head?
I look back at the time so fondly, and I don't have any regrets in what we did. And I still love everything that we did. And I still love the place. I'll always hold a place in my heart. Yeah.
But that's so good to know that nothing actually went wrong.
No.
It was that moment in your life that it was the right thing for you to do. And looking back, what did you enjoy the most about running a gîte?
Family, friends, having the best holiday that they could have. For me, it was about them going home and kind of saying that was the best holiday we've had.
As you've sold your gîte, you might be willing to be a little bit honest, more honest than those of us who still have gîtes.
More names have been changed, but protect the innocent.
But were there negatives? Was there anyone who kind of disrespected your property?
You know what? In the 7 years, there's probably only a couple. One of the families, we didn't know how many people were staying. We tried to figure it out.
But they had booked, they took both places, so 20 people.
I had an inkling, mainly because the main booker had already said to me that there would be additional people who would be staying elsewhere in the village.
Yep.
I couldn't get numbers from her. She just wouldn't divulge any information, and it did make us really nervous.
Yeah.
And then as soon as they arrived, she didn't really want to engage with us at all.
Yep.
And people were coming and going. To this day, I have no idea how many people actually stayed. It did leave a bad taste in our mouths, actually. But thankfully, it was the only one in the whole 7 years. And I was trying to work it out earlier. I think we probably had about 1,500 people staying with us over those 7 years. So that isn't bad.
But did you find it weird then in that week that you initially start off with, I want them to have the most fabulous time here, and then at some point that slightly changes into, I'm a bit concerned about the next people arriving and what the state of the house is going to be in?
The trust and respect thing, it goes both ways. Yeah. If you're going to a restaurant, you trust that they've reserved the table that you've asked for, and you trust that the chef is going to cook you the meal that you want. They trust that you're going to turn up. They trust that you're going to be mindful of the other diners. Yep. That you're going to pay your bill at the end of the meal. It's no different from being on holiday and living in somebody's gîte, because at the end of the day, these are our houses, these are our homes.
I think that's a brilliant analogy. We've certainly had a few guests over the years who haven't really been very respectful of the property, and that's the hardest thing.
It's always lovely to get feedback from guests, and we always get feedback throughout the week. It's not necessarily just at the end of a stay, but we had three families who thought the houses were haunted.
Have they all experienced the same thing?
Young girl shouting a particular person's name, and a name that isn't used by anybody outside of the family, and then the other one was running footsteps upstairs.
And did you then use this in your marketing and said, one of our USPs is we have a haunted gîte?
I was really tempted. I was talking about it with a friend who also likes the haunted thing, and talking about what could we do, some sort of haunted weekend event. There's three families out of goodness knows how many. Is not a lot, but it is interesting.
And it was the same house that all three families mentioned.
No, so it was different. Yeah. So two in one house and one in the other.
But you never experienced it yourselves?
There were occasions where I'd be, mopping the kitchen floor, and then I'd feel like there was somebody standing in the door, and so I turned around thinking that somebody was there, and there was nobody there. Yeah. But I mean, who knows? I used to love hearing the stories that people would come out with.
Funny, we had some guests who we'd configured one of the bedrooms slightly differently for them because they had some young children who wanted to be together, and halfway through the week they said to us, the children are petrified of that bedroom now because in the middle of the night the lights came on. And so I said, oh no, how could that have happened? And then I went, oh no, because we moved the beds, one of the light switches is behind a pillow. And obviously one of the children had stretched out in the middle of the night and hit the light switch. And they'd all woken up petrified thinking it was a ghost. So at least we could explain that one. Yeah. But that's really cool to have a haunted house.
All these things that you never imagine are gonna be part of the conversation. We had a family of edible dormice living in the farm.
What's an edible dormouse? Chocolate.
It's a small version of a chinchilla. It's a furry small animal. Yeah. And this family of edible dormice decided to take up residence in the attic one summer. The dad came over and said, There is this thing sitting on the beam, staring at the children.
Oh, it was actually coming into the room.
Into the room at night, and they have really big eyes, and they were sitting on the beam, staring at the children. And he's like, "You've got to do something."
And what did you do?
Gary was like, "Okay, well, I'll get a trap." And he went, "No, you can't kill them." And Gary was like, "I'm not going to kill them. I'm going to get a humane trap." Yeah. And we caught. There were 7 of them.
And you managed to catch them.
Oh, they love Mars bar.
Mars bar's always good, isn't it? And what did you do with them?
We drove them into another rural wooded area and let them go.
I thought you were going to say we drove them to another gîte and let them out. Then you decided after 7 years, so actually time for something new. What are you doing? What is your new? So people can see we are still in France.
Gary had seen this place 6 months before and was like, oh no, that needs a lot of work. So there's a bit of a pattern forming, isn't there? We decided to come and have a look at it, and it's just one of those places. that you kind of go, oh, yeah, it's got something about it.
Absolutely.
Very different in that it was 50 years old, but it's been built to look old.
Yeah. This is a house which envelops you two. That's how I feel about it. It's so funny. You lived in a property before you lived in the smallest of the 3 houses, and you were there to ensure everyone had a good time. And I think this house ensures that you two have a great time. There's something about it which is it's not a party house, but it's where I would like to go and stay for a weekend with my friends. It's got everything.
It's a sharing house. It's definitely
a sharing house. It's a really good way of saying it. The decision you made in the UK to move to France was definitely the right one. The decision to buy and run Gîtes was the right one until you got to the point where you thought, actually, time to do something else. Your virtual assisting has increased more and more to the point that actually you probably got too much work.
Yeah.
In a way, that's fantastic.
Yeah.
Because again, that gives you options. You're swanning about in France.
Yeah.
Having a wonderful time.
Listen, I'm not going to complain.
Looking back on everything you've learned, what advice have you got for people who haven't yet started out with Gîtes?
Do your research.
Oh, what do you mean by that?
Location.
And was your location good then? Yeah.
Understanding what's around you. What is the draw? What is the thing that people are going to come on holiday at your place for?
Because everyone wants different things, don't they? And could people walk to restaurants and cafes from yours?
Yeah, massive draw. It was a 10-minute walk down the hill. And there was a little proxy as well, so people could kind of just stock up.
A little what?
A little corner shop.
I thought you said something else then. Proxy!
There was a boulangerie, fantastic boulangerie in the village as well.
Yeah, brilliant.
And then the other thing is this is a strange one. You don't need such a big plot of land. You come out here and everything's so spacious. You don't need the 7 hectares. It's not really. With it comes a lot of work.
We've got 1 hectare. That's all. It feels, because there aren't any fences around our property, it kind of flows into the fields around us. I think I would concur with that. I think having a lot of land can be nice, but you've then got to do something with it. Yeah. So your advice is do your research about location. Don't get too het up about buying massive amounts of land. It's maybe not as important as you think it might be. Any other tips, top tips for our listeners?
Good accountant.
And why would you say that was important?
Just one less thing to worry about. We signed up with somebody literally within 3 months of being here, and we're still with them, and they're great. It's one less thing to have to not worry about your tax returns. Thing to know your neighbours / local people, because actually they are a font of knowledge. Obviously, you can glean.
What did you glean from your neighbours?
You know what? Maybe it's not even about information. Maybe it's more about situations. Like the day we arrived in France, and our 2 lorries of furniture from the UK turned up, and it was raining. It was a November day. One of the lorries came into the driveway, and it fell off the driveway into a ditch.
Oh, no. On your property?
We were like, wow, is this a sign? Is this a sign? Gary went into the village, asked around, and the local mechanic, his son was farmer, got on the phone. He came along, pulled it out. And it's little things like that.
Yeah. And did he tell everyone in the village, oh, these new English people have arrived who managed to get a lorry in a ditch? But keeping your neighbours on side and having a good relationship is really good. And Gary speaks really good French. He spoke French before you got here, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. But which is really bizarre because, he hardly used it when we were in the UK. Yeah. We'd come on holiday. But I mean, what he then managed when we kind of landed here, it's incredible. He literally has no fear.
He's a complete natural, isn't he, at picking up French. You and Gary are an important element of somebody enjoying their holiday.
If you're in hospitality
and you live on site,
yep. It's really important that
I agree.
You are part of that brand. Yeah. When you go into this kind of thing, you kind of sort of say to yourself, you have to write a book, because some of the stories that you experience, we had a phone call at 11:30. We'd been out for dinner, and it was a French family staying in an old farmhouse, and we had this. I was just, there's a bat in the attic, which is where the kids were sleeping. And pool nets can become very useful objects. So we were up in the attic trying to chase this bat with a pool net. And Gary had said to the parents as he was coming down with the bat in the net, if you'd have just waited until midnight, he would have turned to Dracula and he would have walked out the front door. One of them absolutely burst out laughing. It was the funniest thing. Everyone else, what? And they just didn't get it at all.
British humour or Gary humour?
Yeah, just recounting it, knowing that you were going to come today and just talking about it, it's reminded me how much fun we did have with some people. Yeah, some of the late nights and having to supply Coca-Cola and paracetamol the following day. Yeah, just some really, really wonderful experiences.
Yeah.
And I think that's how you have to kind of look at it. It's a job. It's absolutely a job, and it can be a tough job at times, but the experiences that come with it, they're just brilliant.
I wonder whether real enjoyment comes after you've sold. Because I have to say, I spend most of my time thinking about maintenance and deadlines. Today I've got to get this done, and tomorrow the laundry's coming to pick up the laundry.
Yeah.
I wonder that when you've sold, you've then got the time to sit back and think, actually, those guests were so much fun.
Rather than thinking about, we've had dishwashers breaking down midweek and having to replace them, and there's all sorts of storms hitting, and kitchens being flooded because the amount of water that has come out of the sky.
Oh well, thank you so much, Suzie. It's been really good to get your view as an ex-fellow gîter on what it was all like, and I'm really pleased that there were more positives than there were negatives, and that you look back with so much kind of fond and happy memories.
For me, having a network of people around me is really important. And so finding you, I think it was 2019, and then having that kind of wider Gîte Guru group was
especially
fantastic.
Over COVID.
And especially
I could have got through it, but it was made so much easier that we were all going through the same situation. We were all getting guests contacting us saying, what do we do? And we had no answers. And at least we had each other then to talk it through and come up with a solution. Yeah, it was really handy.
You don't feel alone.
Yeah, even though you're sitting on your own, on your property with Gary. But,
we've all got friends sort of, but a lot of them are not in this business. And so when you talk about things or you share stories or say you've got a problem, actually if they're not in that same business, what you do need is somebody who has got that experience,
can think things through with you. Well, you always remain an honorary fellow gîter, even though you're not really anymore. But thank you very much for all your time.
Welcome to the Gîte Podcast, brought to you by Gîte Guru.
What an honest conversation from Suzie. It goes without saying, really, that a big property brings with it a lot of work. So Suzie and Gary had 2 gîtes that could accommodate up to 20 people. That's a lot of beds that need changing, and bathrooms that need cleaning, and cutlery, and dinner service, and glasses, and everything that goes with it. And with such large buildings, they have the 2 gîtes, their own house, and other barns. That requires a lot of maintenance throughout the year, and problem solving when things do go slightly wrong. They also had 2 pools, which is a lot of work, and 7 hectares of land. All of this together had an impact on their lives. The other thing that had an impact on their lives, running a gîte, was the fact that Suzie had the opportunity to become a virtual assistant, helping companies and individuals with their administration and diaries. And that grew and grew, which then allowed them, or gave them, different options around the work-life balance that they had. So it was really interesting how they began to recognize how much work these 2 gîtes were, and that Suzie was able to create a job for herself. Some of the tips that Suzie gave were around the location, how important that is for the success of your gîte. Really interestingly, about how owning a lot of land is perhaps not as wonderful and romantic as you might think it would be when you buy the property. Her restaurant analogy around how trust and respect goes both ways, maybe also expectations between owners and guests, and how crucial that is, that it does go both ways. Once they sold up, Suzie and Gary did miss their guests and miss knowing how happy their guests were when they stayed at their gîtes. But I don't think they missed the pressure of those deadlines at all. You've got arrivals, departures, maintenance, changeovers. All of that does add pressure, put pressure on your shoulders. And I think that's the bit they don't miss. Although with their new property, they of course do have maintenance and renovations to do. It's all to their own schedule, and to their budget. So I hope you've really enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed talking to Suzie. And Suzie, thank you very much for being so honest. And even though you don't own a gîte anymore, you are still our honorary ex-fellow gîter. If you haven't met us before, we're Gîte Guru, Frank and me, Rupert. We run our own gîtes, Le Mas and Le Mazette, and when we left our careers in Amsterdam back in 2015 to run these gîtes full-time, they became our livelihood. We had to make the business work. It wasn't always smooth sailing, but through trial, error, and plenty of learning, we've built a 32-week season and a loyal base of 60% returning guests. We started Gîte Guru to share what we've learned and to help others succeed too. So if you're looking for free tips, insights, and inspiration, head to gîteguru.com and subscribe to this Gîte podcast. For ongoing updates, behind-the-scenes posts, and relevant Gîte news, including tax changes and industry trends, follow us on Instagram at gîte.guru. And if you're after more personalized support, we offer tailor-made advice around your business, your gîte, its interiors, facilities, the services you offer, and the all-important communication and marketing. So telling the story of your gîte and making it visible to your target groups. If you're interested, get in touch for a free Zoom chat about your property, your plans, and how we could help you. And don't forget, follow us on Instagram at gîte.guru. See you there.